The Biden administration will restore diplomatic relations with the Palestinian Authority more than 2 years after President Donald Trump effectively ended them. The action signals the return to a more traditional and even-handed approach to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The shift, which will include the resumption of American aid to the Palestinians, was announced on Wednesday in a speech by Richard Mills, the acting United States ambassador to the United Nations. Political sources said Wednesday, after failed local attempts to break the cabinet deadlock, attention has been shifted to France's possible intervention to help in the formation of a new government to enact reforms in line with the French initiative to rescue Lebanon from multiple crises. Hopes for reviving the stalled French initiative rose following a statement issued by the Élysée Palace saying that the situation in Lebanon was among topics discussed during French President Emmanuel Macron's first phone conversation with U.S. President Joe Biden. The statement spoke of reapproachment and readiness between the two leaders to work together for the sake of peace and stability in the Near and Middle East, particularly regarding Iran's nuclear file and the situation in Lebanon. Tunisia's parliament approved the cabinet reshuffle that deepened the conflict between the prime minister and the president as hundreds protested outside the heavily barricaded parliament over social inequality and police abuses. Riot police turned water cannon on protesters outside the parliament on Tuesday, trying to quell the largest rally since demonstrations began this month. Hundreds of protesters had marched from the Tadamun district of the capital Tunis, where young people have clashed with police several nights this month and were joined by hundreds more near the parliament. Prime Minister Hisham Mishini named 11 new ministers and said he hoped it would inject new blood into this government. A French presidential official said on Wednesday the Islamic Republic of Iran must end its provocations and return to the terms of a 2015 nuclear deal with world powers if it expects the United States to rejoin the accord, but even then a broader negotiation would be needed. Former U.S. President Donald Trump pulled Washington out of Iran's nuclear pact in 2018 and reimposed U.S. sanctions that had been lifted under it, prompting Tehran to violate its conditions. President Joe Biden, who took office last week, has said the United States will rejoin the pact if Tehran resumes strict compliance. He was speaking before Iran threatened to block short-notice inspections of its nuclear facilities by the United Nations Atomic Agency. The U.S. Senate on Wednesday confirmed President Joe Biden's nominee, veteran diplomat Antony Blinken, to serve as Secretary of State. The 100-member Senate backed Blinken 78-22, meaning he could be sworn in as the nation's top diplomat later in the day. A simple majority was needed in the Democratic-controlled chamber for his confirmation. Blinken is a longtime Biden confidant who has been confirmed by the U.S. Senate before, most recently to serve as number 2 at the State Department during former Democratic President Barack Obama's administration when Biden was vice president. Leaders of the farmers' unions in India have condemned on Wednesday the violence during a tractor rally held by farmers in the Indian capital to demand repeal of new agriculture laws. On Tuesday, tens of thousands of farmers began the day in a convoy of tractors festooned with Indian and religious flags along New Delhi's outskirts as the country celebrated its Republic Day. For the last 2 months, thousands of farmers and their families from across the country have held sit-in protests at different borders of Delhi demanding the repeal of 3 farm acts passed in September. They say the laws would leave them at the mercy of corporate giants and prevent the government from buying crops at guaranteed prices. The Dutch government will not back down on its coronavirus curfew despite 3 nights of rioting, ministers said on Wednesday, after the worst unrest to hit the Netherlands for 4 decades. Dutch police arrested a further 184 people overnight, taking past 400 the number detained after the Netherlands imposed its first nationwide curfew since World War II. At least 10 police officers were also injured in the latest clashes on Monday night, which left a trail of looted shops and burnt cars in cities including Rotterdam, Amsterdam, and Den Bosch. Several cities granted police extra powers amid reports that fresh protests were being organized on social media overnight against the 9 p.m. to 4:30 a.m. curfew. AstraZeneca's chief executive insisted on Wednesday that the company was not selling vaccines ordered by the European Union to other countries at a profit after delayed orders sparked fury from EU leaders. The British-Swedish drugs firm admitted last week that it would not meet its contractual delivery commitments to the EU because of reduced yields in its European supply chain. That prompted European Health Commissioner to announce that the EU plans to start tracking vaccine shipments exported to non-member countries, a sign of growing distrust. India has vaccinated 2 million health workers in less than 2 weeks and recorded 12,689 new coronavirus positive cases in the past 24 hours, a sharp decline from a peak level of nearly 100,000 in mid-September. The health ministry said the daily new cases had fallen below 10,000 on Tuesday, with 9,102 cases. The daily new positive cases were 9,304 on June 4th last year. India's fatalities dropped to 137 in the past 24 hours from a peak level of 1,089 daily deaths in September. India's total positive cases since the start of the epidemic have reached 10.6 million, the second highest after the United States with 25.43 million cases. South Korea added 550 new coronavirus cases on Wednesday, bringing the country's total caseload to 76,429. The Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said the daily tally exceeded 500 for the first time in 10 days as infections at religious educational facilities have flared. The country reported 7 more deaths, raising the total to 1,378, the public health agency said. Of the locally transmitted cases, 120 came from Seoul and 137 were reported from Gyeonggi province that surrounds the capital. China has recorded its lowest daily increase in COVID-19 cases in more than 2 weeks, suggesting aggressive measures implemented to curb a resurgence of the disease are working. The National Health Commission said 75 new confirmed cases were reported on Wednesday, down from 82 a day earlier, and the lowest single-day rise since January 11th. 55 of the new cases were local transmission, with the remaining 20 classified as imported cases. New Zealand authorities are investigating 2 new positive COVID-19 tests from the same quarantine hotel as the country's recent community case. On Wednesday, the Health Ministry announced 2 people had returned positive results after previously testing negative twice and completing their mandatory isolation. The Australian government responded to the news by delaying a decision on whether to restart quarantine-free travel from New Zealand. Australia recorded a 10th straight day of no new local COVID-19 cases on Wednesday, allowing its most populous state of New South Wales to relax coronavirus restrictions after controlling a fast-spreading cluster. New South Wales has recorded no local cases for 10 days after low single-digit numbers earlier in January. Victoria State, which is hosting the Australian Open tennis tournament, has gone 3 weeks without a local case. Federal Health Minister Greg Hunt tweeted Wednesday marked the 10th day of no community transmission of COVID-19, adding to the country's success in combating the pandemic. Asian equities slipped on Wednesday as investors looked to the Federal Reserve's guidance on its monetary policy, while futures for U.S. tech shares jumped after strong earnings from Microsoft. MSCI's gig of Asian ex-Japan shares slipped 0.3%, dragged lower by profit-taking in resource shares, as some investors have grown wary of stretched valuations. But Japan's Nikkei rose 0.2%, and the region's tech-heavy markets such as South Korea and Taiwan, eked out small gains, helped by 0.5% rises in Nasdaq futures after Microsoft's brisk quarterly results.